Hello, I'm Chris Schnee, and I write science fiction and fantasy. I'm back with another story from the game Wolves of God by Kevin Crawford. It's set in a post-apocalypse land. It's spring of the year AD 710, Roman ruins litter the island of Britain, and petty kingdoms are at war. We zoom in from the island of Britain to East Anglia, a land of swamp and monsters. Our heroes are Brother Titus, a saint with knowledge of crafting and the giving of gifts. Bare-chested warrior Wolfred, who wants to find fantastic beasts and kill them. And warrior Oswald, who's a more careful, observant healer. Together they did a job for Mossminster Abbey, a damaged monastery on the north coast. In the aftermath of that, the party has a journey to make to the trading port of Gipeswic. There they hope to trade away a set of 6 fine silk robes that nobody sensible wants. It's nice clothing, but too fancy by far for the practical men or women of Britain. These travelers hope to get something more useful in return. They're also each carrying a pair of copper ingots, part of their earlier treasure. They hike east through East Anglia, low-lying country, with hills on their left and swamp on their right. Much of the land here is the Fens, a marsh that gets harvested for flammable peat and natural iron nuggets. To the west, sitting on a relatively high island of the mire, is a recently built monastery and convent named Eli. The party's target for now is the village of Thedford. It's a very old settlement on a crossing point for a river. There, they're taken in by the local lord as guests. After all, they have a story to tell, and a saint is with them. That's Brother Titus. This lord dislikes the group on first sight, but he wants to take the measure of them by having them attend a party of his. There's a traditional feast for honored guests, held in the Lord's Hall. This is no medieval palace. This is more of a simple hilltop fort with a couple of rooms and hardly any privacy. It's a common site for feasting and discussion, though. At this feast, Wolfred is the one to tell the tale of his past adventure, since he's a skilled performer. He does a pretty good job entertaining the Lord and his warrior friends. The Lord's wife is in charge of the show, and she passes around a cup of wine for everyone. The Lord praises them, but they're socially expected to give gifts or swear vows in the name of generosity. As a fitting gift for their level of experience, they give away half of the 6 copper ingots they brought. It's costly, but it does buy them some friendship. At this feast, they drink and relax. They sleep in the Lord's Hall, a large thatch hut. Random events happen. Oswald wakes up with a pounding skull from too much drink. He's not in good shape for fighting the next day. Brother Titus was sensible and didn't stand out. Wolfred was the same, handling his drink well. From there, the party continues traveling south. What do they eat? Brother Titus has grown in holiness, and he prays every so often. When he does, the group happens to find clean springs, fruit trees, and oblivious deer. Oswald is a bit skeptical that these findings are really miracles, but everyone is fed just the same. They make it to Gipeswic without incident. This is a mighty town of maybe 1,000 people, located just inland from the English coast. But it's not a proper town because there's no church. The people here are largely wanderers with no tie to the land. Some wear the strange clothes of the kingdom of Francia off to the south, and there's a group of Irishmen and even some people from the southeast in a land called Frisia. The foppish outfits of the Francians are encouraging for the prospects of selling silk. Someone else stands out here, though. The Frisians have set up a pottery workshop, a big one. To the party this is strange because you just don't do that. Brother Titus remarks, there's nothing new under the sun. How can it be that people aren't only rebuilding Roman things, but trying to establish something new? Wolfred sets his eyes on fine, colorful glassware along with the pottery. He grunts and says, it's valuable anyway. They try to gather information here. Titus is particularly good at understanding foreigners and befriending them. They learn that the evil new religion of Asia has been spreading through Europe. A group of men calling themselves Saracens, or Umayyads, who have been invading Iberia and might take over to the southwest. A holy man has prophesied that a hero will one day come from Francia as a hammer of God to drive back the wicked ones. So far, though, he hasn't appeared. There's also talk of monsters. Something has been prowling around this trading post lately, and men have gone missing. People are afraid to travel at night. Seems like a straightforward task for these heroes. They ask for any clues about this killer. The various travelers seem awed by the heroes, eager to help them and so help themselves. They try to get these 3 a sleeping hut near where the attacks have been noticed, and lend them a dog to help them solve this mystery. Wolfred and the dog split up to look for clues, but it's Oswald's keen eyes that notice big, bare footprints on the dirt. This beast walks like a man. There's also talk about an angry, bitter man who was banished from here after unspeakable crimes, but who refused to leave. He was thought dead, a hermit in the swamp, but maybe this man is only changed, grown large and hateful with sin. Shouldn't be that hard to kill, says Wolfred. Thanks to Oswald and the dog, they track this creature outside town, toward a crumbled Roman villa. They hope to catch this thing at dusk, before it can set out to attack anyone else. The creature is called a Feifel, manlike but hulking and sharp-nailed. Confronted in its lair, it notices the heroes just in time to avoid being surprised. It bellows in rage and springs to attack. Titus prays for the smiting of the unclean. He falters, though, and nothing happens. Wolfred doesn't care. Eager for glory, he steps up with his broad spear. The monster swats the weapon aside, but Wolfred follows up with a shield bash to the jaw. Well, Oswald's spear is barbed, and it bites deep. However, the monster's blood steams as its wounds seem to start to knit almost instantly. It leaps right at the saint, about to tear his head off with one mighty blow. Like other English heroes, Brother Titus has a special fate. Part of that is, I am a coward at moments of peril. This comes true, and it saves him. After this failed prayer, he falters and runs away, fleeing for his life. His cowardice saves him for now. Oswald calls out, "Titus!" Wolfred says, "Never mind him, kill this thing." Wolfred lunges, misses, but thinks of the splendor of the fine copper bracelet he earned through past deeds. Hardened by that, he manages to strike again and land a solid blow. It's so powerful the monster reels, slamming into a wall. Oswald whips out his sax, a large knife, and cuts the beast's throat with it. The men stand there breathing hard but not wounded. Titus is hiding, miserable and muddy from having thrown himself into the mud. He weeps at having failed God and man in this fight. Wolfred is scornful, while Oswald tries to console him. If Titus had been a warrior, this would be an official shameful act that hurt his advancement. Part of the consolation is to loot the ruin. This beast likely has some plunder from its past victims. The party finds 3 gallon jugs of Frankish wine, a large pile of unfinished wool, and some silver and copper jewelry. Back in mighty Gipeswic, the 3 become bearing these things, and the head of the monster with them. The townsfolk are impressed. The traders figure that it will be safer to work here now, but they note that this property was stolen from the friends and companions of some who were still living here. So there's some implied dickering and negotiation over what belongs to who. The party offers to make generous gifts of most of this stuff, in expectation of other gifts in return. Titus leads this negotiation. Everyone understands that it's really trade, but it's always phrased in the form of gifts and customary hospitality. Titus is a man of God, but he's worldly enough to negotiate, and is especially good with foreigners. His group has just done everyone here a service too, and he can miraculously find more food to give. So the gift-giving goes very well. The party also has its leftover copper and 6 silk robes, 3 of which are a consignment for the monastery. Titus gets interested in the pottery makers. They and the glassmakers have fine wares to trade, some of which would be useful. But the fact that something new is here is an opportunity to build. He talks with these people about building a new monastery here, but what the people want is an expanded production center, a way of increasing the wealth of the land, not just living purely by subsistence. In order to do that, the artisans need resources, and so Titus arranges an elaborate trade deal. The silk robes, copper, and most of the jewelry will go to the Frankish traders of Gipeswic, who in return will give away fine iron tools. The crafters will give away a large supply of pottery to the party to take back north with them. But there's something more to do here. The residents mention that they've been looking for a way to build more, to make this town more prosperous than it might have been even in Roman times. Not many miles southwest of here stood the largest Roman settlement in all Britain, and even this spot had an old fort and a kind of administrative center here. The Romans stopped exploring and conquering, and they had to hunker down in walled settlements as their empire collapsed. Now those places are ripe for scavenging. In fact, these merchants would like the heroes to investigate the fort, because it said some monsters from there recently escaped and got killed. Maybe the time is right to do a fresh round of scavenging. So, the party sets out along the coast in search of this fort. It has a low stone wall made centuries ago. Scavengers have occasionally gone in, and some have even come back. This place is known as a castor, from which we get words like castle and towns like Lancaster. I am describing this using a 4x4 grid. Conveniently, the Romans did like to build on a grid pattern with walls around it. The party climbs the fort's wall, entering from the north. They look around at rubble-strewn streets with hardly a sound. The most visible thing at their entry point is a large blocky building with crumbling decorations of naked people. The heroes spend an hour looking quietly around and discover that this is a bathhouse. A search reveals an intact flask of perfumed oil, a minor nice treasure. They creep through the old paved roads deeper into the city. Like Trajan's Market in Rome, the area to the south is a 2-story corridor of what were once shops with high arched ceilings, and there's a campfire burning. Someone's here. The dice tell that there's a pair of men, wounded and recovering from some recent battle. The heroes notice this group first at a distance of about 90 feet due to the smoke and fire. The others are reluctant to approach, but the burly Wolfred wants to investigate. Oswald is the one to call out and try to make a good impression. "Hail there, do you need healing?" The duo here is alarmed and wary, but not openly hostile yet. They reach for their spears and say, "We're strong enough if you bring trouble." Brother Titus says, "Peace, you two, we're explorers." The appearance of an obvious churchman troubles these two. They're pagans of some kind. Can the party tell this? Yes, Oswald is perceptive enough to notice their unease around a churchman. Oswald asks what happens to them, and offers to tend their wounds. He convinces them well enough to approach and get a look. Titus wants to try some miraculous healing, something he has limited access to, but Oswald waves him off. These campers say they were attacked by some kind of monster in the ruins, one they didn't see well. They're lying. The wounds are from fighting men they robbed. Oswald can tell this, since he has actual healing skill. What does he do about that? He finds an excuse to step aside and talk with the others, and explains his suspicions to them. Wilfred's eyes light up, and he says, "Then whatever they have is fair game, and they're weakened." Titus says, "You would prey on the weak?" Oswald notes that this group probably got whatever they have by preying on somebody else. But Titus argues that an attack on these people would be murder and robbery, based on no certain evidence that they've done anything wrong. With the saint practically dragging the warriors back along by the ears, they come back to the wounded men and ask for information about the ruins without fighting. Titus prays aloud that these two will be fed and comforted today, and within minutes of looking around he happens to find something odd, a perfectly preserved roast chicken hidden in a broken wall. The two injured men are confused, but willing to accept share. The Romans were weird. In return, these two talk about the surrounding area. To the west is the basilica of the town, the fortress temple from which it was ruled. South is a fine domus, a mansion with a courtyard. East is a strange wonder, a theater where supernatural actors still perform. These travelers have looked for treasure in all of them, of course, but who knows if there's still something around. The party is interested in seeing the theater especially, out of curiosity. They should say goodbye to these two injured men, and don't bother them further for now. They go east. It takes around half an hour of carefully sneaking along and scouting. They find the landmark and more. Here is a Roman theater with a semicircle of stone benches and a stage area in the middle. In it stand a troupe of animate statues made of stone and wood. They're acting out a scene of a romantic revelation with voices like grinding stone. They've long since become hard to understand. They react to the new audience with indifference. "What are they saying?" asks Oswald. Brother Titus knows Latin, but mostly from books. He's able to figure out some details, and he finds that it's an alarmingly erotic scene being played out by statues. Feeling uncomfortable, Titus backs off while the warriors laugh at him. Seems harmless, though. The party watches longer than Titus wants to, then walks away. There's another large building in the same block of the city, a blocky facility that was a manufactory. They find a crack in the walls to go in and explore. And what they find is startling. They seem to be outdoors again, in a canyon. Oswald is first to realize what's happened. They're inside an arx, a work of magic by the Romans, a place hidden outside the normal world as a refuge for some other purpose. He says, "This is a dangerous place." Titus finds it pleasant at first glance, but he's unnerved too. "I leave it to you two to decide if we explore." He's not really willing to usher them into a fight after what he did last time. Well, the warriors want to see more. The place where they stand seems to be an outdoor storage area that used to be an open-air theater. Now it has racks of Roman-styled weapons and other gear. Wilfred's eyes widen with greed as he sees all this wealth arrayed around him. Oswald nervously checks that it's possible to get back out this way, and he can't find the space in the era that led to this place. Looks like they've got access to some valuables, but they'll need to find another exit. Oswald and Wilfred each don a sword belt and an iron gladius for its scabbard. They'd love to find some Roman armor as well, but have no such luck yet. Titus grabs a set of common wool cloaks for everyone, and takes a sword for himself despite not wanting to use it. The geometry of this place is confusing, since it's not completely clear where the walls really are. In a few places the heroes find they're bumping against invisible walls that make the scenery ripple. Oswald says, "I'm not eager to fight. Let's seek a secure exit." The others nod. They move quietly and cautiously. There's dim light throughout. They walk west through the canyon space. They notice a barracks area resembling a field of tents with an odd artificial look, as though made of wood instead of canvas. And they've been clawed and slashed by something. There's a whoosh of air and a piercing cry, and a large blue feather lands on the ground. Whatever bird dropped this, the group is not eager to meet. They back off and head the other way. They find a garden maze where the walls seem infinitely high, as though everyone has shrunken. It's a place requiring careful observation to find the way out or to explore properly. Oswald is keen-eyed enough, and he keeps his wits about him. With his leadership, the party makes its way through the maze and finds something interesting. There's a box here of odd red powder, its function unknown but looking important. Titus grabs this. They continue west. Looks like a military training field set up with practice dummies and targets and floor mats, but it also looks like it used to be a workshop of some kind with flickering walls like it can't decide whether to be indoors. A feather floats on a breeze, again. There's only a moment of warning. Wolford tries to use stealth here and quickly ushers everyone behind a broken catapult. They spot a winged creature with brilliant blue feathers and a face half like a woman's, but feather-edged and bloody beaked. It stirs the air as it flies past, searching, hunting. The party is hidden for the moment, but it knows they're here. They need to move stealthily to escape. Oswald is the one who makes too much noise, kicking a rock. This half-bird monster is a harpy, screeching in rage as she dives into combat. Wolford is a would-be monster slayer. He tries to intercept the first diving attack with a spear. The broad point impales the harpy through one wing, doing major harm. Oswald follows up with a stab of his own narrower spear, and Titus's prayers are answered when the blows seem to shatter part of the harpy's uncanny body. She's badly hurt. The monster flies away bleeding and screeching. She's more used to eating whatever rats or other vermin infest this place. Wolford wants to go for the kill, but the space here is open enough the harpy can escape. Which direction? Looks like she flies to the south, the same direction the heroes want to keep going. Not good, though Wolford looks forward to finishing the job. The party takes a few moments to rest, on guard for more trouble. They realize they have been using their spears and not the fancy new swords. It's just as well, due to lack of training with these. They move on to the south. They've come to a lower ceiling room that looks like a cave. The space is full of broken, overturned desks like a monk's copying room in a monastery. The harpy has retreated to here. There's a hole in the illusion walls here that shows the daylight of the real England outside. Unfortunately, the monster isn't retreating any farther. Here, in the more confined space, she will fight to the death. The heroes fight intelligently. They back off and have Titus try his praying again while forming a shield wall and being ready to intercept an attack. The two men stab with their spears, but the beast is still alive and slashing with her talons and beak. Oswald's shield makes scraping noises as claws rake across it. Wolford isn't so lucky, getting a gash across one leg. He roars and spears the harpy through the chest. Black blood drips to the floor to mingle with his red. Blue feathers quiver. Oswald bandages Wolford's leg immediately. It's a bad wound, but not fatal. For now, the group decides getting out of here is a great idea. The harpy is dead. Oswald cuts off some talons and feathers as a trophy. Titus meanwhile searches the scriptorium. He finds some documents that he stuffs into his bag without reading them. The group flees through the portal and finds itself truly back outside in the Roman fort ruin. They make a direct line for the exit, the eastern wall. But while they're doing that, there's an encounter. The party gets spotted by the same duo they met before. They see Wolford hobbling and bloodied, and everybody looking worn out. They start to get ideas. Not smart ideas, though. The duo steps out from cover, spears ready, and says, "Those packs you carry look heavy, and you got swords? Impressive. Big warriors like you ought to share whatever you found in there. Shows some generosity, you know?" Wolford growls and says, "We did by patching your own wounds. Would you like more?" "He did a good job. The way we see it, though, we're healthy now, and you've been taking things that we should have found while you were telling us to rest. So how about a little gift, you know?" Titus is angry. "As my companion said, you got a gift already. I will gladly pray with you if you wish, but we have no other business with you." One of the men says, "We're not the praying type." They look about to attack, but they turn out not to be completely stupid. They can see the fighting spirit in the two warriors' eyes and the black blood on their spears. It's enough to make them back off, shouting curses. So the heroes make their way up over the fort's wall and escape from the uncanny ruin to return to Gipeswic. In their travels, Brother Titus reads the documents he scavenged. His eyes go wide. He learns that this is material about the Roman tradition of the artifacts, a style of magic used for creating wonders. In particular, this material is about the red powder they found. It's a type of amazing cement that can shape itself rapidly at a surprisingly large size. Better yet, there might be a way to make more of it. Titus is uneasy about the discovery because it's pagan mysticism, forbidden for him to use, but it's worth discussing with his church superiors. The party rests in Gipeswic, telling the tale of their trip. They've only seen a fraction of the fort town, and came out of it wealthier. Titus manages to blab about the artifact's discovery, but refuses to hand over the scrolls and cement right away. He insists that he needs to go back to his monastery for orders. This leads one of the potters of Gipeswic to say that he will come along to plead his case for the use of this lost knowledge. Titus has no need of a sword, so he generously gives this valuable item away in return for no personal gain. Instead, he arranges for grain to be given to several orphan children, and for them to be taken on as apprentices by the potters. In particular, there is a young potter with a scar like a lightning bolt on his forehead, whose parents were killed by a serpent. He'll be provided for. The result is that the party has established its importance in this trading port, and gotten its hands on an ancient magic that might make a long-term difference in construction. They've also enriched themselves with a bit of old armament and killed a powerful monster. They traveled north again with a wagon full of valuable pottery and the purchased goodwill of the traders, who already are better equipped with tools they got from the Franks thanks to all the trading. What did they accomplish in terms of experience? Brother Titus did a shameful deed, but it doesn't really count as a true shame for his profession. He did help with an adventure for the glory of God, but I can't say he risked danger to help the weak or converted a powerful heathen. That's only one point of glory for him, but I had him give away that sword that was a large part of his personal wealth, so two glory after all. The two warriors successfully did a mighty deed and defeated powerful foes for 2 glory each. That means everyone gets to reach the 3rd level of experience. Alright, that's the end of this adventure. In summary, the heroes traveled south to the coast to sell some silk robes to Frenchmen. They killed Grendel, and they sneaked through a Roman ruin and killed a harpy. They came out of that with a relic the game calls red cement. I picked this treasure to follow up on the idea that the heroes could meaningfully change the setting. The game's in-character fantasy writing comments that the Romans had magic that probably vanished into secret Vatican vaults somewhere, without leaving any obvious trace on history. In my campaign's version of reality, that started to change. It could be that English crafters end up mastering miraculous stonework that makes England stronger and more prosperous than in our timeline. Maybe East Anglia gets more powerful. Maybe the Danes don't take over, and the English of Beowulf does not become Chaucer's English. All that speculation came from me trying to do some research into the real history, though. I looked up a few of the real locations on the way to Gipeswic, and details like the arrival of Frisian potters, and the timing of when the Muslims began conquering Spain. It's been interesting to learn more about the real material, which helps me make up more magical things about it. Doing a dungeon crawl in this game is unusual, because the default context is an outdoor Roman ruin where you can enter and leave more freely than in some cave. The arc segment is from rules about pocket dimensions within the ruins. The rules have tongue-in-cheek suggestions that you pull out old Roman gaming books, i.e. old D&D, and steal dungeon designs from those. Here I built one using rules that give the place something of an identity and not just randomness. I had fun with this and hope it was interesting to hear about. My ability to continue doing these is based on my health, which is in doubt right now. Given the ability, I'm going to see if I can pursue another Ashes Without Number adventure, because I was having fun with that one. I might come back to this one at some point as well. Anyway, I am Chris Schnee, writer of science fiction and fantasy. Here are a couple of my books if you're interested in my more formal fiction. This game has been Wolves of God, written by Kevin Crawford, Adventure Details and Butchering of the Rules by me. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.